There are various ways in which we can describe the aims of this course. One that you can take from the reading we've had the last few evenings is the aim of inner freedom. This is, as Gurdjieff said in that lecture which I read, a very great aim for man. And it is both the inner freedom from one's own inner enemies and also the outer freedom, that is, of independence of all forces acting outside of us, that we must wish to attain. Another way of expressing the aim of this course is that we wish to learn how to work, that is, to be able to work from our own understanding and without requiring to be... Have you had work to do, you people?
No.
What? That is bad, because then you upset everyone by doing that. The second way in which we can express the aim of this course is that we should learn how to work from our own understanding and initiative. And that in itself is a very big thing and implies a great deal of this inner freedom. Most of you understand that you can't work from your own initiative and understanding, but you don't really understand why this is. It is because you haven't opened the channel to the part of you which is able to direct the work from yourself. That is, the channel to your own conscience. And that is the third expression of the aim of this course. That is to help people to find conscience and to learn how to live by conscience rather than by an external morality, by rules, by their own whims and impulses. It is a very big thing to live by conscience, and it is not an easy thing for people who are accustomed to living under the control of external influences and their own habits and impulses. Although everyone probably in this room would say that they wish to be able to live by conscience, if they could really see what it means to live from one's own conscience, they might decide to take the next train home and not go on with this. There's no external ruler, no external teacher can make such demands upon us as our own conscience makes when it is awakened. This is because it is our own Creator, our own God, who reveals to us through our conscience what it is that we have to do. And this becomes, when it is awakened, an imperative. Now, in order to achieve these aims, we have to work on the three parts of man's nature. That is, we have to work on his functions, his being, and his will. There is a terminology that corresponds to this, that is, the terminology which describes three circles, the exoteric, mesoteric, and esoteric, or outer, middle, and inner. The exoteric work is the work of functions. It is the work by which man becomes balanced, harmonized in his inner and outer functions, by which he develops the functions which are latent and undeveloped in him, by which he learns how to relate himself to the external world, how to use his body, his senses, his sensitivity, his capacity for communication. If this work is rightly conducted, it leads to understanding of the first kind. The second, or the mesoteric work, is concerned with our being, with the transformation of our being from an ephemeral, impermanent condition to a stable, permanent condition. It is the formation of the inner bodies, their awakening and their education. And with this comes a freedom which is impossible at the exoteric stage. This work is individual, personal. No one can do it for us. All that can be done is to create the conditions in which it is possible to do it more intelligently and therefore more effectively. In this stage of the mesoteric work, or the work on being, it is impossible to achieve the aim without suffering. This is how it has been prescribed and how it is arranged for man, that through intentional, which means intelligent suffering, he should find his own being. It has not been arranged in any other way. I had yesterday a letter from a Sufi living in Turkey about this, saying a certain person whom I had sent to him, who had a great desire to learn and whom he taught something, he said that this person is not really ready because they have not yet suffered enough and haven't learned how to suffer. Therefore, not very much will happen. And the same with you. You come here, and if you aspire to enter into the mesoteric stage of the work and wish to avoid suffering, then you waste your time. The third stage of the work, which is called the esoteric or inner work, this is the development of the way that leads to the birth of the soul in man. It is his I, his will. This comes from commitment and decision, from the ability to put quite clearly one part of oneself against another part. it also requires the strength that has come from the second stage of the work and the balance and effectiveness that comes from the first part of the work. It is the central work. Now, clearly, I'm not going to promise you that you can pass through these three stages of the exoteric, mesoteric, and esoteric work in 10 months, and at the end of that time have achieved what it takes even exceptional people many years to achieve. What I will do as best I can is to bring you to understanding of what these stages are and what is involved in them. They are both successive and synchronous. That is, they both happen in an order of successiveness, and also they happen together at the same time. This is how things are, that there is both a temporal and an eternal component in our work. There is something which progresses, goes forward, and there is something also which is always there and can be found at any moment, because it is the seed of it is in every one of us. In the temporal sense, in the sense of successiveness, we shall divide this course into three periods. One from now until the end of the year, which will be the exoteric stage, when most of our work will be directed to the awakening of our functional consciousness, the awakening of our bodies and our feelings and our minds, and if possible some achievement of balance between these. The second will be at the beginning of next year for 3 or 4 months, and the third, the final stage, for those who are able to come to it, will be at the end of this course. That is, there will be special exercises of a much more personal character given to you individually, as well as more general exercises connected with the awakening of one's own heart. But it's also true to say that all have to happen together. That is, from the beginning there has to be work on function and being and will. We have to make being efforts. That is, we have to be prepared from the start to accept, to suffer where necessary. But it is intelligent suffering for a definite purpose. It is not foolish, wanton suffering that people inflict on themselves without any purpose. And also it's necessary, at a very early stage, I shall introduce you to elementary exercises on decision that prepares you for finding your own I. But even apart from what will be taught and shown to you during this time, you have to have this in your mind. The purpose of this work is to bring you to freedom and understanding and conscience. This aim must be in front of you. It must be clear to you that this aim is what you wish from this. Now, the first requirement for nearly everyone is that they should have a positive relationship to their own bodies. Some of you have already worked this way, and you have seen the change that comes. For others of you, this is difficult. For example, for some people, just simply sitting in this posture, or sitting in other postures that are uncomfortable, so occupies so much attention and is so disturbing that it interferes with other things that you wish to do, like the inner exercise. But this is because your body is not yet obedient to you. I think it is right to say that without an obedient body, it is almost impossible to do this work. This is what Gurdjieff said to me when I went to his institute in 1923. Put aside knowledge, put aside trying to learn more, and to set myself to be able to be master of my own body. And in all my life, no one has ever given me a more valuable piece of advice than that. If I am now able to do with my body what I wish, it is because of that advice and because I have tried to follow it. What I said this morning at the exercise about keeping one's body in a good state, the matutinal ablutions, the learning to carry and to hold one's body as one's own body, learning to sit as one chooses to sit, and not letting one's body do what it wishes. This has to be achieved. Then we have the opportunities in the work, which I'm going to speak of afterwards, about the organization side. Every one of us will be doing work for the community, for the house. We have to do everything ourselves. We have to keep the house clean. We have to improve its general conditions. We have to cook meals and take care of all the objects here. This requires an attentive and alert body, attentive in one's hands, attentive in all that one does. There will be, and we must, and it is an essential part of it, there should be as hard physical work as our bodies are able to do. And for that we are very fortunate that we have the ground here, and very much work that needs to be done, so it is in no sense artificial. Several of the people who've been here in this preparatory phase have of themselves seen the value of this. Some have worked very hard one day in polishing and scrubbing and polishing the big hall. I could see how at the end a great deal of life force had been liberated, but also a change in the relationship to one's body. Other people worked hard at the digging and preparing of the ground for the food. Other people have worked very hard at the painting. And for some people, for the people who've done such jobs as the kitchen boy or downstairs washing, it can mean that they have to work a very long day and very hard. But you must understand that this is a very great advantage from getting into a right relationship with one's body. If you are fortunate enough not to have been brought up to be squeamish about your body, for example, by having done rough sports as children, or having trained your body to do hard work, we are very lucky, because this is a benefit that one should carry into life from childhood. If you have not, you must ask yourself, what is it you're going to choose to do? Are you going to let your body continue to dominate you with its complaints and excuses, or are you going to become master of it? Quite a number of people have got tired or have developed colds or something of this sort. This is all an indication that one has not got a right relationship to one's body. For example, I had the beginning of quite a severe cold last night, but this morning it has gone because I didn't wish to have a cold. But some people unconsciously wish to have excuses for not doing hard work. This is a great disadvantage to them. If they're not prepared to come to terms with their own body, they really are wasting their time here. The work that we are doing here, that we've started this morning, for example, on the energy of sensation, and the work that we shall do with the help of the movements classes, will make it very much easier for you to learn how to manage and get more from your bodies. That is, to have a more positive relationship to it. It is also necessary from the start to work on our emotional reactions. This doesn't necessarily come in priority to the work on the body, because the work on the body is really the means, very largely, one of the best means for helping us to get command of our emotional nature, to get the reins by which the horses can be controlled and guided. It is impossible to have 80 or 90 people living together here, as we are, without emotional tensions. Therefore, in general, it is not necessary to create artificially emotional disturbances for people. This is the advantage of this kind of situation, as distinct from people who only occasionally meet or meet for short times, where perhaps some kind of emotional shock is required. But this way of working is not only more effective, but it is also more subtle. At any moment, one may have a feeling of irritation or impatience, a wish to complain, feeling of self-pity or of dislike towards some other person, doubts as to their good intentions and so on. Whenever one sees any kind of emotional impulse of this sort, it is the opportunity. And you have to be thankful, as I've said to a number of people who've spoken to me about this, one has to be thankful when such situations arise. Because without this, there is no possibility of getting freedom. I read to you the other evening the chapter India. We'll read it again very soon, because it is one of the key chapters of Beelzebub. It leads up to this crucial statement that the best way available to man for diminishing and perhaps eradicating the consequences of the properties of the organ Kunderufer is to set himself to bear the manifestations of others unpleasing to himself. More good advice could hardly be packed into one sentence than there is there. But we must also see clearly what Gurdjieff means when he goes on to make this picture of those who think that bearing the manifestations of others unpleasing to themselves consists in isolating themselves and shutting themselves away from others. It is the absurdity of running away, of shutting oneself to other people because they're unpleasing to us. This is pictured in the chapter on Tibet. You must understand that this chapter is one that speaks to each one of us. Whenever we set ourselves to withdraw from other people, to shut ourselves off from them because they're unpleasing to us. Immured favorites, as Beelzebub calls them, the height of absurdity, the people who wish to attain something and yet shut themselves off from the best means of attaining it. It is also necessary for the balance of the functions for us to engage in active mentation. Partly this active mentation is the means by which we can direct the work on the body and on the feelings. Active mentation and common sense are very near to one another. It is also necessary to widen and open our horizons, and the part of the course, as you know, will consist in what I shall do with you in connection with cosmological ideas, with language and communication, what Gilbert Edwards will do connected with types and astrology, all of which widens the horizons. But the key work really is this, that one should learn how to use every opportunity that comes to us. Elizabeth has undertaken to work with the group that will every day be doing the housework. Perhaps once every week she will have each of the groups and talk about the light that is thrown on our problems by the way we do ordinary household tasks and how to use these tasks for self-observation and self-knowledge. I also want very much that you should have a good foundation in the psychological ideas that have been developed at our institute, almost entirely founded on Gurdjieff psychology, but I think that we have been able to give a more comprehensible and more applicable, more easily verifiable picture of it by making use of certain Sufi ideas and ideas also from Orthodox Christendom. And Dick Holland has undertaken to work with all of you in groups on this, and starting from the foundation ideas to work through the whole of the psychology. There's one other side of this that those of you who are familiar with Gurdjieff's meetings with remarkable men will recognize that this, and in a less direct way in Beelzebub also, is the learning to do unaccustomed things and learning to do what one does in a different way. Kjeld Lingard has undertaken this, and that this has to be done largely spontaneously because it can't be done according to set rules, or it loses its very meaning. But some of you have already had this experience of not having done house decorating before, or at any rate not in an intensive way, of working together to repair and paint the house. There are very many techniques in the arts and crafts of man that some of you know, some don't. But everyone should set themselves to learn things how to do things they haven't done before, and to do what they do better. And one way is to do things more quickly, but without losing effectiveness. This balance between having properly controlled attention over what one is doing and yet going fast. This is a very good way by which we can bring about a coordination between the different functions and centers. For example, you noticed it this morning in serving the porridge. Eric was taking great care to see that the porridge was divided properly and put into the dishes, but it would have taken half an hour at the pace he was going. The care is necessary, but the speed is also necessary. It stretches one's attention to work faster without losing care. Next week we shall begin with a theme which I shall talk about on Monday, which will give you this special focus of attention, and this is how in general we shall work. Every Monday I shall give a talk here in which I shall introduce and explain a particular general theme of work, which you have to make the fullest possible use of during the week, because the theme will change every week. We shall arrange it so that when we come to Friday evening, we shall have a talk in which you have opportunities of saying what you have understood about this theme, so that we can see what we can make, what we have made of it. After Christmas, we shall change, and new kinds of exercises will be introduced. But here I want to say that after Christmas, we may not be so many people. I must remind you that I did say to everyone that if after 2 or 3 months I find anyone is not really suitable or making use of it, they will have to go. And this you must know that I mean this seriously. This you will know by Christmas time. I think, from what I've seen, everyone has come here with really a sincere wish to work. But mixed with this, there is also a lot of imagination and confused attitudes. And if you can't straighten these things out in a couple of months, it's better that you should go. You're wasting your time and everyone else's time, and you would not be suitable for the mesoteric stage of the work. So please don't say afterwards that I haven't made this point quite clear. I made it clear in the letters that I wrote to you that I reserved the right, or in the very initial prospectus that was sent out about it, to send people away and give them back 2/3 of their money if at the end of 2 or 3 months I see that they are not able to profit by this. If any of you feel now that you have second thoughts about staying, please don't hesitate to go. As you can see for yourselves, the house is overcrowded, and there will be no hardship for anyone if you decide to go away now. This work is too strenuous and too hard for anyone who is liable to have self-pity and negative imaginations of different kinds, or is not prepared seriously to fight with his own laziness. It doesn't mean that you can't be lazy. There are some people who are lazy and whose laziness is an extremely good means for them to work. If you really understand about this and know that you are lazy, you can use this as very good means. If you know you have an unpleasant nature and dislike people, or have a bad character in some kind of way, and you know this is no obstacle to work, because if this is a means for you, for your basic struggle. One of the principles of this work is that one must know one's own negative principle and know how to struggle with it. It doesn't matter what defects one has. There are no obstacle to work if one is prepared to struggle with them. But if one is not prepared to struggle, one will not get anything. Now, the organization of the work will be in this wise. We shall have 3 groups. And at the end of this meeting, Anna Derker will give you all paper with the names of the 3 groups in them, A, B, and C. Every group has its own timetable for the week. You will initially have more to do with the people of your own group than with the other 2, but at Christmas, if we go on to the next phase, the groups will be rearranged. As I said before, the week begins on the Monday morning with a talk here in this room about the theme of the week's work. Then, next week, Group A will take over the whole running of the house. They will be responsible for cleaning the house, for cooking, and which will occupy all the group during the morning, and then half or less than half of the group will be required for preparations for the evening, and the remainder will continue with the work of painting, cleaning, preparing the house. Meanwhile, groups B and C on Monday will have their own timetables, which will include a total of 5 periods. A 6th period comes in the evening when everyone will be together, including the group that's in charge of the house. In the timetable for the groups that are not on house duties, there will be lectures, There will be work with Keld in the orangery, or work in the garden, digging and preparing the ground for our production of food, and also for getting the garden into shape. And I shall have periods when I shall work with these groups, and Dick Holland will have a group every day for the psychological work. The timetables of those will be put out each week so people will know what their group will be doing. Then on Tuesday it changes over, and B takes responsibility for the house, and A and C follow the studies and movements, and then on Wednesday it is C group, Thursday again A, Friday B, and then on Saturday we change round. It is our day of hospitality and receiving, and now C group prepares. If we have at the first not many guests, then we simply prepare to have the meal on Saturday evening together, which is a more relaxed and open meal. On the days from Monday to Friday, the meals, the lunch, midday and evening meals will be in silence. Breakfast and tea will be free to speak, and in every day there will be 3 or 4 free periods from half an hour to an hour and a half when you can see to your own affairs. But included in the working periods, everyone will have time for a project of their own. And I ask people to choose, if you haven't done so, something that you wish to work at, either to study or to make. If you like to undertake something specifically connected with the house, that is good. If you have some study of your own that you wish to pursue as part of this activity, you can do that. So that during the week, from Monday to Friday, we have the 3 groups alternating in this way, with house duties, with groups with studies and movement classes. On Saturday, it is the day of openness and hospitality and reception, and everyone is free to invite their friends, providing they tell the organization by Wednesday that they're going to do so that the necessary food can be provided. And we shall, as soon as we are able to do so, we shall invite people from round here, because it is very important we should have a good relationship with our environment round here. As we shall not be able to go out, we have to invite people to come and see us. As you know, from Monday onwards, we remain here, and only under exceptional circumstances do people go out of the grounds, other than to go to the post office, which is open to anyone during their free time to go there, but not to go away from Sherburn from Monday to Saturday. Sunday is a free day when everyone can do whatever they like. Some people will have to like to do the cooking. When I said that we all have to learn to do new and unaccustomed things, you must understand that this does make an impact on our life here together. For example, there's no one here who's had experience of cooking for 100-odd people. And yet this cooking has to be done every day. I asked Mary King, at very great inconvenience to herself, because she is an experienced and qualified caterer, to come and help us, but she could only do so for a limited time and come back from time to time to help. I'm going to ask her, and I do so without having even consulted her, because I know her, Lily Helstenius, to help also during this time, and we shall be having Mary Cornelius, who's had a lot of experience of this when we were at Coombe Springs, I hope by the end of the month. So we shall have, I hope, 3 people who can take turns in looking after the catering and the ordering of the meals. Elizabeth will step in when there's crisis, but she'll have enough on her shoulders without that. But those of you who haven't done this kind of cooking before will all have to take turns in it. And this is a real challenge, because the well-being of the whole house will for one meal depend upon your doing it right. For this kind of thing, we have to follow what I've told you many times, those of you who've been here up to now in the preparatory period, and that is everyone must be prepared to pass on to others what they themselves have learned. If you've learned to be kitchen boy, you must be sure that you do teach the kitchen boy what you know about it. For example, I think Trevor was kitchen boy yesterday, and he should have told this morning's kitchen boys, but he didn't explain to them about the beating up the porridge, with the result, as you saw, the porridge was in lumps. That is the fault of the kitchen boy who didn't tell today's kitchen boys that the porridge has to be beaten, and very thoroughly until all the lumps come out of it. There are many little details of practical kind in connection with running a fairly large establishment like this that in the ordinary way are looked after by a trained and paid staff. Even if we had millions of dollars, I wouldn't have one paid person working here, whereas this would deprive us of one of the most valuable elements in this work. It is doing things for ourselves and for one another that provides us with conditions. Learning to do all these innumerable things and doing them better and better. And already, I will say this, that it's already a noticeable improvement. But nothing less than perfection must satisfy us in this. The demand that we make on ourselves for perfection in what we do is really esoteric. It is the innermost quality that is required of man. Be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven also is perfect. This is what our conscience demands of us. If you see that you've put aside a job and left it unfinished or imperfect, turn your body round and go back and complete it. And better still, if you see that somebody else has left a job imperfect, complete it for them, and don't go and call them and point it out to them, if it's in your power to do so. Another sound piece of advice: bear one another's burdens, and so you fulfill the commandments of Christ. Now we're going to arrange it in this way, that I'm going to talk separately to each of the three groups. First to Group A, then to Group B, and then to Group C. I think it has been arranged that there are no people in Group A who are involved in preparing lunch, so that the lunch cooks and those who have house duties can go off and do them. If any in Group A have accidentally been put down for these duties, you must tell Dick Holland or Anna Durko, and they'll rearrange it. After lunch, I'll talk to Group B and then to Group C. After lunch, there is also a work of planting out our winter cabbages, our first move towards growing our own food. And there are several people in Group A who've already worked there. And if you will, those in Group A will talk to Kjeld, who'd like to go and do this. He requires 6 or 7 people. He and Joel Kuczynski will be looking after all this production of food. So that the people from Group A or the people from Group C, who won't be required for the meeting until about 4:30, they can help in planting, and the others will be, those I hope will be available for the evening cooking. I don't know how this has been arranged, so that we can have this meeting of Group A, I think, in the library next door at 11 o'clock. And then Group B this afternoon between 2:30 and 4, and the Group C from 4:30 or 5 o'clock onwards. We shall have a reading at the usual time, and then this evening we can all come together here after dinner, and we'll just make a start on doing something with the movements. I remember this, you may be thinking to yourself, how can 90 people do movements together? In the last week or so of Gurdjieff's life, it was about 10 days before he died, he was very, very much wanting at that time that things should start effectively in England. And he sent Madame de Salzmann over to London, and we got this great big hall, twice the snow, not twice the size of this, not much, really not very much bigger than this. And we had 187 people in this. 187 people did the movements together. And I went back the next day to Paris and told Gurdjieff about it, and he was really delighted.
Yeah, the other way.
Also, the news just came through at that time that the final arrangements for printing Beelzebub had been made, and he knew it was going to be published. And I think that then he said, whew, now I can go. 11 o'clock for Group A. What? Supper at 8:30 after the reading.